Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for waiting. I truly appreciate you. What happened today? I recorded an absolutely wonderful interview with the director of the Rarick Museum. If you're not familiar, Nicholas Rarick, born in 1874, was the visionary that ultimately escaped Russia since Bolsheviks came, and he traveled all around the world, was in Himalayas, was in New York, hence the museum. And now Russia is using his legacy and his art as part of something that is typically Russian, and billionaires are buying his art in Russia, and up to $16 million a piece, and gifting it to Putin and whatnot. And so we spoke with the director. He guided us, me and you guys, through the museum, and spoke about the art and the what he produced when he was in Russia. He was born in St. Petersburg, and then in the United States and in India. And he actually, 90 years ago, put together the Rarick Pact, which was signed by Roosevelt, which was about preserving art and cultural wealth through any wars and any military operations. And so he saw that through World War One. And so then later, this became the foundation for UNESCO, for the Hague Convention. And so we spoke about all that, and of course about his personal views as well. So I can't wait for you to watch this. This will be about a 30-minute episode. I'll cut it down, and I will put it out next Sunday as part of our new Sunday edition video series. Okay? So that's why a bit of a delay. So within 1 hour, I had to put the whole newsletter together and the whole broadcast together, but we got it. Okay? And I don't want to start with Trump news. What do we know about Trump? No, today he has no official meetings. Tomorrow he has no official meetings. Sunday, guess what? He has no official meetings. And Monday, he has no official meetings. So until Tuesday, hopefully you don't hear from him, you don't see him. Of course, behind the scenes, they orchestrated a big CDC shit show bonanza, ultimately allowing us to get ivermectin, that's meant for horses, through your insurance, but not so much any type of vaccines, COVID vaccines, but now flu vaccines and all other vaccines are also a big question mark. So we're going to talk about that. And I got so many letters from you guys who went to CVS and tried to get vaccines and you couldn't. And this from New York and from Florida and from other states. In fact, 16 states became affected today. So we're going to talk about that. Okay, let's say hi real quick. Hey, Yak, thank goodness, tired of him. Yeah, right. I feel you. Hey, Peter. Hello. Hey, Steven. Happy Friday. Yes, happy Friday and long weekend. Exactly. If you're in the United States, Labor Day is on Monday, so we have a long weekend. Hey, Michael. Hello. Hey, Mike. Hey, James. Hello. Looking forward to show. Yes. Okay. It's good to be back indeed. Welcome back. Throughout all this, let me know about Monday, because I do report on global news. So the world is not going to have Labor Day on Monday as much as, we will enjoy it. So do you want to have maybe a shorter broadcast around 5 p.m. on Monday or no? All right. You let me know in the comments. Do you want to take a day off or not? So I'll be collecting news anyway. That's what I do 24/7. I'm so boring. It's incredible. So let's start with Macron and Merz. This morning I wake up, too much information, and I put my phone, this bad habit, turn up, Instagram or whatever. And I see a video of Macron and Merz, but Macron speaks German and Merz speaks French. And I'm thinking, I don't drink, I don't smoke. What happened to me? Here's that video so you can experience it too, until we get into the business and what actually was discussed in this so-called Franco-German Council. Take a look at the video.
Bringen Europa voran.
Unis et forts.
Für Freiheit und Sicherheit.
Pour nos citoyens.
Als Partner.
Comme alliés.
Und als gute Freunde.
Et bon amis. Merci à vous.
Vielen Dank.
Okay, you feel me? You get that at 6 a.m. You're like, what is it? But what it was about. Chancellor Merz and French President Macron co-chaired Franco-German Ministerial Council in Toulon. Do I pronounce it correctly? Is in the most beautiful parts of France. The first such meeting since Germany's change of government. Now, this is not something new. In fact, they do meet very frequently, and this council does continue. Now, this is the first time with Merz being the leader of German government. Now, 10 ministers from each side joined to discuss economic and security policy, with both leaders stressing that the partnership remains central to Europe's future. These councils are typically held once or twice a year, alternating hosts between Berlin and Paris. In parallel, German defense and foreign ministers met with counterparts in Copenhagen to coordinate additional support for Ukraine. So, yes, I know mainstream media has been portraying it as a big honeymoon, and this is picturesque, occasion and location, and they wish each other have a good night and kisses and schmisses. But all that aside, it's a pretty serious meeting, because they did deliver very straightforward statements that we could only wish to hear 3 years ago. Very straightforward. Also towards Trump as well. So, as to security cooperation, the two nations also announced deeper cooperation on defense, including work on a missile early warning system, the so-called initiative called Jewel. And the renewal push on the main ground combat system, the MGCS. It's a tank project. Their joint statement emphasized the importance of France's nuclear deterrent, and mind you, the EU's only one, as a cornerstone of NATO's security. So it is essential. Germany is building up their production when it comes to military equipment, when it comes to missiles, when it comes to tanks. Now, France plays a huge role because, as I mentioned, it's the only country in the EU that has the nuclear deterrent. Now, both pledged more air defense weapons to Ukraine following intensified Russian strikes. Merz once warned that there was no illusion of a quick end to the war, but reaffirmed we will not abandon Ukraine. Now, what they also did, they also spoke very frankly about Trump and whatever he, was warning, remember Trump was posting about sanctioning European Union because of their laws that prohibit disinformation and misinformation. So essentially, Trump is working off the investments and donations into his, it was inaugural fund, right, where everybody was chiming in and chipping in 1 million each. Meta did that. X did that. Of course, Musk invested millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars into this election, but also Meta did and whatnot. So they are giving him money to represent his their interests when it comes to Europe, because Europe has passed already this law where it is, unless you present credible sources, some articles are not seen as articles, and some things are claimed and labeled disinformation, misinformation. If you do it a couple of times, this gets off the internet. And so certainly this is what Russia, FSB, is striving on when it comes to X and WhatsApp and Schmotsap and whatever, right? So, but both did reject Trump's threats. Speaking alongside Macron, Merz dismissed U.S. President Donald Trump's threat to impose tariffs on countries with digital taxes or regulations. He called EU digital market rules an expression of sovereignty. Quote, "We're doing this in our own interest and solely for our own interest, and we will certainly not be guided by statements that perhaps consider completely different, perhaps even no regulation necessary." Let's pause here. That's exactly what Trump wants. Let's not regulate information. What is disinformation, misinformation? In this case, they're all advocating about freedom of speech. Unless you speak badly about Trump, then it's a no-go. Continued. Merz added that Germany and France, quote, will not accept if anyone anywhere tries to pressure us, end quote. The European Commission also defended the bloc's right to regulate its digital economy. And that's what I'm referring to as this statement we only wish to hear 3 months ago, 4 months ago. You know, when everybody was traveling to kiss the ring at the White House, when as recent as a couple of weeks ago, when everybody traveled to the Oval Office and was listening to Trump, you know, talking about how he's going to achieve peace. So now those two at least are very straightforward and are speaking out. So moving on to other stuff. Now, how it all started with Ukraine. This morning, there were some articles produced by The Economist by quite credible sources and magazines and media outlets. And so they were reporting that NABU, remember this is National Anti-Corruption Bureau that Zelenskyy wanted to, and actually did, pass the law that it will only essentially listen to him. He would be appointing the leader of NABU, and that would be under his complete control. People started protesting. Ukrainians went on the street, regardless, war or not. They were protesting. Then Zelenskyy essentially passed another law, going back. Okay? So now this National Anti-Corruption Bureau is now investigating what is going on with this new Flamingo missile. Why? They opened investigation into manufacturer of the Flamingo cruise missile and fire point attack drones. Fire point attack drones and Flamingo manufacturer are actually two different things. Okay? So detectives are probing whether Firepoint inflated component cost or misrepresented the number of drones delivered to the Ministry of Defense. Also, the company is being investigated for possible ties to Timur Mindic, who is a co-owner of Kvartal 95, which is the comedy studio created by Zelenskyy. So, are they laundering money through this missile system or not? This is now being currently investigated within Ukraine. Now, the scrutiny comes as questions swirl around the Flamingo's effectiveness, but also the price tag that comes with it. Now, according to Ukrainian defense, it cost 1 million euros to produce one Flamingo missile. Current capacity is 1 per day. What they're saying is it was conceived in late 2024. They needed 9 months to create it. Essentially, this was as a response to U.S. lack of missiles and also Washington denying Ukraine the request for U.S. Tomahawks, or whatever you pronounce it as. So the Flamingo was designed in just 9 months by a team with no prior defense experience, but they were so inspired by World War II's German V-1 and Soviet Strish drones. They studied it, and now it features a fiberglass body of stealth, an overhead engine, No, am I? Okay. Anyway, live stream, so please be patient with me if I disappear. I say bye-bye and wish you a good long week. I'll be back. Okay, so I was about Flamingo. So it's pretty impressive. Flies 3,000 kilometers, can carry a 1 ton as payload, actually exceeding 1 ton. So it's great. But production is now over 90% complete across the secret dispersed facilities inside Ukraine, with some work outsourced abroad. Now, what is kind of a bit of negative is that a bottleneck, right, remains the AI-25 turbofan engine produced at Motor Sich in Zaporizhzhia, a facility that is frequently targeted by Russian strikes. But altogether, it's very impressive achievement within just 9 months. Now, what this NABU is investigating whether there is, some money included for somebody who is not belonging to this project. So they will be investigating, they will find out of it. Now, of course, there are people who are praising this, there's people who are criticizing this. Now, my personal opinion is, what else? Are you relying on US weapons? No. Are you relying on what? European Union help? They help you with money to buy again from US. So if Ukraine can produce something, whether it is great or not, well, according to aviation expert named, his last name is Krivolov, now, I had nothing to do with the internet. I don't know. It was something I had to fill out. I'm back. Thank you for. We're still talking about Flamingo. So, and I see your comments. Thank you, Morgan, for saying that 1 million is dirty cheap, and Tom cost 2 million and 4.25 from 2 million to 4.25, and it doesn't have the range and payload, right? That's the whole point. So, of course, you will have critics, and of course, you have those who will be praising, this. But my point is, what is your other option? Now, what NABU is also investigating, that there was a defense show in UAE, and this Firepoint drone company that is also Ukrainian presented an FP5, which was exactly the copy of Flamingo, asking for another type of investment. Now, if we think critically, maybe Ukraine is trying to present the same missile in two subjects and get more investment for it, and herewith decrease the cost. So maybe let's give them benefit of doubt. Now, of course, if there's somebody who owns a comedy club is making money off of defense system, then yeah, it's not good. And of course, they will be investigating it. Now, as to Zelenskyy, today he rejected EU's buffer zone proposal, which is obnoxious if you think about it. And that's exactly what he put out. So he has essentially said that, there are proposals for 40 to 100 kilometers buffer zone along the front line. And he's called this idea for what it is: outdated. Because Zelenskyy argued that in modern warfare, such zones are meaningless, since long-range artillery, missiles, and drones can strike far beyond the distance. Quote, if Russia wants more distance, it can retreat deeper into occupied territories, he said, which makes total sense. I would also suggest Russia to retreat so far back that you're back in your own goddamn territory. How about that? And maybe EU should be pushing for that, because with all of this, maybe I'm lost in translation, but tell me, in all of this conversation, from the White House, from the State Department in the US, from the EU, from NATO, have you ever heard anybody put out this, wonderful statement suggesting Russia to go the heck back, to retreat? Because I haven't heard it yet. Are we waiting for this brilliant solution? I don't think it requires a lot of brain power to come up with this simple solution. How about you just go back home? Because maybe that should be the solution. Not buffer zones, not deeper inside Ukraine. How deep can you go so far back that you're back in your territory? I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. The comments highlight Kyiv's frustration with attempts to craft compromised security measures while Moscow continues its offensive. Anything else to add? Yeah. James says, I think Trump is on this freezing. It was freezing before, like January of this year, X was freezing, and somehow it then affected YouTube, and then YouTube started freezing, which then led me to not going live because I was so pissed about it. So maybe that's back. So you're not that far off. Paul says, hi, Paul. Georgia and Ukraine matters. I forget the number, but he said it's like 40 billion European weapons purchased from Ukraine, budgeted, I can't remember, this year, 2026, makes Ukraine-owned weapons cost much less. Right. And also, to your point, Trump says that I'm adding 10% surplus to any cost that have to do with purchases by the EU for Ukraine. He's like, I don't want to make money on this war, but I'm going to make money on this war. So he's making money on this war. On making money on this war or anything, here's my question. Because we see this today. Secretary Rubio applauds President Trump's implementation of Impoundment Control Act. What the hell is that? To save U.S. taxpayers billions of dollars. So, since assuming office, President Trump has been committed to rooting out fraud, waste, and abuse from the U.S. government, saving American workers billions of dollars. Before I break into this applause and celebratory dance, can we answer one question as to, let's assume he saved all this money? As for me, this administration is the source of abuse and waste and whatever, but it's me. If he did save this money, where did this money go? Because our Medicaid is cut, our services are cut, the vaccines will not be available. I mean, you can literally shit yourself into death by taking ivermectin. Maybe that will help you, but everything else is just getting less and less and less. And he's stealing people off the street, claiming they're criminals, sending them back, going to concentration camps. We don't get any tax credits, any payouts, any payments, nothing. So where does this money go to? It also doesn't go to pay out debts either. So maybe we should ask this question. One person, takes one person from the press to ask this question. Sorry, dear sir, dear leader. You can also do it on the knees if that works better for the visual. Where does the money go? We, the subjects, want to know. Maybe you'll get the answer. Now, hey, this is so weird. UN Security Council had a meeting today. Urgent meeting, because what? Moscow is bombing Kiev and killing civilians and bombing EU delegation headquarters and UK consul as recent as yesterday. So they're calling for emergency meeting. And in that meeting, Miroslav Jenca, which is currently UN Assistant Secretary General, warned ambassadors that diplomatic momentum towards peace is at risk of rapidly fading if large-scale Russian attacks continue. Miroslav, on which planet do you live? Because on planet Earth, we don't have a diplomatic momentum. You know why? Here's a quote. Russian Foreign Ministry, the drunk-tart spokesperson for Horseface Lavrov, today put conditions for ceasefire. This is what you, Miroslav, refer to as diplomatic momentum that is at risk of fading out. Russia is calling for demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine, a neutral, non-aligned, and non-nuclear status, recognition of Russian-occupied territories as legitimate, guarantees for Russian-speaking populations. So, Sir Miroslav, is that diplomatic momentum you're talking about that is about to fade out? In my understanding, this shit right here is straight out of, any mobster book. Russia is actually, you know what your diplomacy, Trump, Miroslav, and all the whatever, what it led to, Russia is now demanding security guarantees from you. The rapist is demanding security guarantees from the victim. This is what your diplomacy led to. You know, it's like in life when you look for life partners, potential is great at a certain age, right? And promises and hope and whatever, it's wonderful. But at some point, you got to judge by results. And whatever you guys did since January 20th, and especially since whatever, like that Alaska meeting with the red carpet, and until today, all you did led to Russia being again recognized as a player, being welcomed by the United States with red carpet and everything. You legitimized the asks of international criminal totalitarian regime led by murderer. You made them legitimate, and now they demand security guarantees from you. That is the result of your so-called diplomatic momentum. So whenever you meet at the UN next month, in a couple of weeks, what the hell are you going to discuss? Two-state solution with Netanyahu literally bombing Gaza, driving over it? Regardless that 200,000 protesters are in Israel? That's what you guys going to discuss? Was Trump talking on September 23rd in New York, addressing UN Assembly? About that he's totally, against recognizing two-state solution, and that point really bowing out of this Ukraine-Russia deal because there's no Nobel Peace Prize, and he's just bored. At that point, how many will be killed in Ukraine by September 23rd when you guys will gather in your very expensive suits? I've been there, I've seen it. Drinking $30 coffees bought at the cafe at the UN headquarters, just discussing this. How many will be dead by then? The diplomatic goddamn momentum. So here's something I really like. Europe's response. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas, who really understands this, she says Putin is mocking any kind of peace efforts. The only thing he understands is pressure. This is what we have to do. And now, to celebrate it, let's watch her statement.
Good to be here in Denmark. We have gimmick meetings coming. So today it's the defense ministers, and tomorrow it's going to be the foreign ministers. Of course, the main topic we have is Russia's war against Ukraine. We saw yesterday the huge attacks on Kiev. Also, European delegation was hit. Fortunately, nobody was hurt physically, but still, these attacks show that Putin is just mocking any kind of peace efforts that are made. So what we have to do is increase pressure on Russia, and this is really what they understand, the pressure. Then a second topic we are going to discuss today is defense readiness. It is clear that we have different capability areas where we have to do more, and I expect member states to take lead in those capability areas. So we have to be very concrete to go with the concrete projects, how we move on. And then
very straightforward. That's what I mean. Like, those are the statements we could only hope for 3 years ago. We were awaiting in January, and now we finally start hearing some clarity. And hi, Doc. Doc is here for the first time, right? Yay! Hello, welcome. I'm usually nicer. You turned in when I was talking about Russia, and that's when I get crazy. Okay. Hello. Hi, everyone. First timer. Welcome, 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 welcome. Okay. And thank you guys for welcoming Doc. This is so sweet of you. Now, some good news. Ukrainian drone made it almost to Putin's palace today. Well, it was shut down, but now we know what the radius is of protecting Putin's palace. So you can visualize what that palace looks like. It's this thing. So this is Vladimir Putin's palace on Russia's Black Sea coast, according to local reports. And so Ukrainian drone was shot down just 10 kilometers from this palace. The interception triggered a forest fire that has already spread across 79 acres and is continuing to grow. How about that for nice Friday news? Okay, now some really not nice news about the alligator Alcatraz concentration camp. So the mainstream media doesn't cover it, so we need to cover it. Univision came up with a report yesterday that was really, whoever did that, but they did tremendous effort to cover it and somewhere in the news cycle, so we will not speak about it. Now, I have seen a lawyer representing these poor folks asking to cover, for any media outlet to cover it. And so I would love for us to learn about what happened on August 27th. Today is August 29th. It's just day before yesterday. In this alligator Alcatraz camp. Yes, the federal judge has demanded for that thing to be dismantled, for those people to leave this camp and be transported and whatnot. But what they essentially put out is that this is according to a witness. This was by Univision. Again, they had a reporter there who was interviewing people and who was also getting notes from those within this camp. And so they say people started screaming because a relative had died, apparently and allegedly, because I wasn't there. The relative was also in this camp. And they started shouting for freedom. At that moment, a prison team came in and started beating everyone. Right now, it's unrest. And we have the helicopter overhead. Everyone here has been beaten up. Many people have bled, brother, tear gas. We're immigrants. We're not criminals. We're not murderers, said one of the alleged detainees. Another of detainees said there are helicopters up above and a lot of people are bleeding. Now, we don't really have any reports as to how many people passed away, how many people, suffered, what were the consequences of this. And this is just one of those moments we just found out about. Is it on the regular basis? Is it the real concentration camp and they get rid of people? The power of media plays a huge role, because why do we know about the gentleman who was, blamed and labeled by the White House as a Mass 13 member and, detained, and then he came back from El Salvador. They want to send him to Uganda and he's filing for asylum, in the US, Garcia, right? Why do we know about it? Because media covered it. There's also one US citizen who was born here and he served in the army and he works and certainly worked as a guard at the farm. Remember when in California they raided a farm, and so they used tear gas against him. They detained him, and then 3 days later they kicked him out and said, "You're free to go." I spoke to him. I was in the press conference. I spoke to him, and I personally, this was my question. I asked, "How did you make out of this crap? Because did you have lawyers? Did your family engage in some type of way with legal assistance?" And he said, the only thing that mattered is because my video where they smashed my windows, the windows of his car, and dragged him out, it went viral. And so because of this media coverage, he was let go. He's US-born US citizen and veteran, deployed overseas. So attention does matter, and we need to cover this. Not just me, everybody needs to cover this. Those with larger followings need to cover this, because that certainly is the matter of life or death. So also a matter of life or death is who's gonna headline our CDC. Yes, 4 people left. One of them was on Jen Psaki's program yesterday, and I have a 2-minute cutout to present to you in a second. But the head of CDC was asked to leave. She refused, and she was fired. She's suing it, whatnot. But we have a new acting CDC director. Jim O'Neill is his name. So Deputy Health and Human Services Secretary, this Jim O'Neill, has been appointed acting director of CDC by RFK Jr. and his worm. O'Neill, who joined HHS in June, brings a background as Silicon Valley tech and biotech investor. He has no medical degrees. He has no experience dealing with anything medicine related. The closest he gets to medicine is investing in biotech companies. Well, his previous ties are with the Thiel Foundation and Thiel Fellowship. Peter Thiel, a program created by billionaire Palantir co-founder Peter Thiel to support young entrepreneurs. This is not O'Neill's first time in the government. He previously served in the George W. Bush administration as Principal Associate Deputy Secretary at HHS, where he oversaw changes to food regulation and emergency response. Now, Washington Post reported this first today. Now, the former CDC official warns of this cleansing that the CDC is planning. This is one of those four who resigned. He was on Jen Psaki's program yesterday. And he gave a stark warning about the health agenda pursued by RFK Jr. So let's use 2 minutes and 9 seconds of our time to hear what he had to say. Unfortunately, this is recorded off of television, so please disregard the format, but listen to the message.
Would agree with you, but from your perspective, tell us more about what you mean by that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the whole rhetoric behind the movement that Secretary Kennedy thinks that he's launched is really that only the strong survive. So whether it's cutting social programs that are important to children, whether it's cutting access to food, so making America healthy means good food. So cutting things like food benefits for children seems like it's not a really good idea to be able to achieve that end. So I think that, and he clearly has a belief. If he actually does believe in viruses and bacteria, which I don't know if he actually does, in the fact that they exist. But he has this belief that sometimes infection is better than vaccine because it creates, I think, the people who survive are the people who should continue to propagate the species. I'm never going to forget, there was an interview that he did at a restaurant talking about the importance of using beef tallow in French fries. And in that interview, he was talking about his desire to have avian flu burn through chickens. And the chickens that survive, they're the ones that should be bred. Those are the words that he said. They're available to watch. And he said because those chickens have the superior genetics. And then 1 minute later, he said that the president also has superior genetics. So, I mean, from my perspective, as someone who has sort of the cultural background of a grandfather who was killed fighting fascism in Greece, that's sort of like embedded in my brain. And I heard that, and I'm like, so that's what this is all about. So, if there are kids who get infected and do well, that's great. We shouldn't be giving them vaccines, I guess, so that we can really propagate the strongest of the species. I feel like what he said about chickens is what he believes about people, and that's scary. And
it is scary, and it also reminds me on this memo that was released by Russia way before the war started, way before 2014. And Paul, I see you referring to the Baltics and how Kaja Kallas gets it. I'm with you. Yes, it's in our DNA to get it. If you're from the area of Soviet Union, whether it's Georgia, Baltics, Ukraine, you have been invaded by Russia or affected in some regard, right? So what essentially is what it reminds me on is that memo by Russia where they said, when we occupy Ukraine, essentially we want to cleanse the population. And at that point, Ukraine had 57 million people. And they said, we will leave about 20 million, but those will be the strongest and would make babies and sort of, be farmers that we will use. And that reminds me on that memo, right? The cleansing, the let the strongest survive. It has nothing to do with democracy. And to his point, this is America in 2025. That's freaking scary. Now, what I have heard, and this was today, let me open this message. I received many messages from people who tried to get vaccines at CDC, and they said that somebody who is a teacher and at a local college in New York, where students from all over the country are around the world come to study, and it's dangerous and in a daily crowded environment. And so, for example, 2 Gen Z student workers came down with COVID a month ago and knocked them out for 2 weeks, so knocked the teachers out for 2 weeks. And they were healthy and fit in their 20s, and so they had a very heavy response. So teachers essentially went today to CVS in New York, trying to get a vaccine, COVID vaccine, and even those doctors or pharmacists whom they know for years and for decades, it's in their local communities, they said, no, I'm not going to give you no vaccines. You have to have a letter essentially from your doctor saying that this will be a necessity for you. Then there was another story that I received, is that somebody's wife has cancer and she's under treatment, and so she went to trying to get the vaccine, and as a response she got that cancer is not enough of a reason to get this vaccine, and then they offered her ivermectin, and this is CVS. And so this is now the situation in 16 states. And I saw some of you was managed to get the appointment in Texas for next Friday. This is wonderful. Let me look up who that was. So this is great, Michael. Yes. And so good for you, really. But for others, in 16 states, this is becoming the news that at least what I'm getting throughout today. Now, we're going to get back to the vaccines, but first, the U.S. Department of Justice today has launched a new cross-agency trade fraud task force to crack down on importers and others defrauding the U.S. through tariff evasion and illegal goods. Now this is a good time to recap that, or remind ourselves that the tax on imports into U.S. are bypassed to us as consumers. So essentially, it's like an income tax. We're paying more for whatever we're buying if this did not originate in the United States, or was at least built up together in the United States. So they are doing a task force to make sure we pay more. Well, thank you. Drawing from the civil and criminal divisions and working alongside the Department of Homeland Security, the task force aims to aggressively pursue enforcement against smuggling and trade manipulation. Okay, as to deportations, immigration was Trump's, of course, signature moment in 2024, and now 7 months later into his second term, the administration is pushing forward aggressively. Then since January, now this is according to ICE, same as with the economy news yesterday, they make up numbers, they cook the numbers. So we don't know what's true, we don't know what's real. I report to you what I'm getting. Now, give it the benefit of doubt, but question everything, because the data is not very realistic. Like yesterday's, the data on economy, that our GDP grew by 3.3%, and then our budget is now $30 trillion more. All of a sudden, their only source was the video by Ludnick, who was just talking. He became the source for Bloomberg, for economists, for New York Times, for AP, for all of it. So question sources. Now, this is from the administration, so treat it accordingly. Since January, ICE has deported 200,000 people, while another 150,000 people have either self-deported or been repatriated by U.S. Customs and Border Protection and the Coast Guard. Now, reality check, fact check. Despite Trump's campaign rhetoric describing undocumented migrants as criminals and terrorists, remember, they were eating the dogs and eating the cats. Well, more than 75% of individuals booked into ICE custody had no criminal record, or conviction. Beyond immigration or traffic-related offenses, fewer than 10% were convicted of serious crimes such as murder, assault, robbery, and rape. But they need to produce the numbers. So this will become the new norm. They need to push the numbers. The crackdown has also led to controversial arrests. This week, 2 firefighters battling Washington state's largest wildfire were detained by Border Patrol officers, sparking outrage among local officials and emergency responders. So they're literally helping with the fires. They snatch them and put them in ICE custody. Make that make sense. What are you guys saying? Doc is saying, actually, police think he has to snort it to feed to the war. Oh, yeah. RFK, beef tallow. And it's so funny because I saw it recently in the store. And I was like, I never paid attention to beef tallow. Ooh, yuck. Anyway, okay, to some quick news. We talked about the CDC director. So essentially now what comes out is how RFK Jr. did it. Reportedly, he gave the CDC director an ultimatum: fire career officials and endorse his advisor on vaccines, the guy who has no experience with vaccines or medicine, or risk being fired herself. I mean, Don Corleone would never. Chicago immigration crackdown. And Don Corleone is the White House chief now, right? The one with the gilded everything. That's the president. Chicago immigration crackdown. So the administration is now officially planning a major operation involving hundreds of Homeland Security officers and use of a naval base. Now they freed a naval base near Chicago where they're going to put all the National Guard. The National Guard that is in D.C. now currently trimming the bushes. Did you see it today? It was hilarious. It was the National Gardener. It's not National Guard. It's the National Gardener. And the guy who was overseeing it, he was like, trim here more, trim here better. Reminds me of Soviet Union times when my parents, when they were in school and they were this pioneers, they had to paint the grass green. Because when in spring or fall, the grass is, brown, they had to paint it green. So the National Gardener will do it. But next stop is Chicago. But you never know with this administration. If they announce one thing, prepare for New York to be invaded. So, Denver schools are threatened. The educational department has threatened to pull funding from Denver public schools unless they bar transgender students from using bathrooms aligned with their gender identity. I mean, how hurt are you that you are in Washington, D.C., and you're so bothered where a kid pees in Denver? You have nothing else to do. You're just like, that Denver stuff, that can't go. Incredible. Now, this is weird here. Trump ordered agencies, including NASA and National Weather Service, whatever remained of it, to end collective bargaining agreements with federal unions. So essentially, for NASA and for National Weather Service, they want to have people with private contracts and contractors, essentially, that they can fire and hire and do whatever. And they won't be also protected, hence they're not be employed through the union, labor union. Also, a new executive order, I talked about it yesterday, in case you missed it, it requires Washington's federal buildings to adopt Greco-Roman architecture, which should include marble columns, stone facade, and it has to have like stone and marble exteriors and interiors. It's literally in this directive. Now, as to JD Vance, Just Dance Vance, he's not only denying that there is an Epstein list, the client list, but he also blames it somehow on Biden. To see how he does that, because I can certainly not repeat it, here's part of his interview.
Jeffrey Epstein, now that you're in power, you say that there is no client list. Why do you think it is that so many of your own supporters don't believe you?
Well, I think what the president has said, first of all, is he's told the Department of Justice to do full transparency here, to release what we have, to release the credible information. And I think you saw Todd Blanche just a couple of days ago actually release the 9-hour transcript of interview that he did with Ghislaine Maxwell. What the president has also said is that we've got a whole host of things that we can focus on. You can both order the Department of Justice to do full transparency. You can also ask the Department of Justice to enforce the law. You can also ask the National Guard to make sure that DC's streets are safe. You don't have to do one of these things or the other. So I don't think that it's a distraction, especially when
I don't even know why his audio is not aligning with video, but whatever. He just looks like a cow. Yes, Paul. There's this AI video, and I was thinking post it, not post it. It's kind of like, where, well, it shows Zelenskyy meeting with Trump and J.D. Vance doing a thing with a couch. It's hilarious, but I decided not to go down that road, but I can send it to you. Now, let's go to the quick global news. Let's cruise through it. So first, German Chancellor Merz said a meeting between Putin and Zelenskyy is unlikely, contradicting Trump's earlier claims that talks were underway. The White House insisted discussions are in progress, but the Kremlin never confirmed. Well, White House has to specify which discussions. Discussions between Trump and Putin are probably ongoing, but Putin and Zelenskyy, or the Western world as they call it, certainly no. So, NATO in Germany, Secretary General Mark Rutte visited Rheinmetall, as Germans call it, Rheinmetall artillery plant in Unterlüß, Germany, the company's largest production site and corner store of Europe's defense industry. Essentially, he opened it, they cut ribbons and all that kind of stuff on August 27th. Now, UN is exiting Lebanon. The United Nations voted to withdraw its peacekeepers from Lebanon, bringing an end to a nearly 50-year mission. Not sure what caused it. Maybe Trump solved this war. Maybe that's the 11th war. Now, as to Zelenskyy, he honored Ukraine's heroes today, awarding certificates for apartments to heroes of Ukraine and families of soldiers who have passed. This was a big ceremony, and certainly this is a wonderful gesture. And Kiev has summoned Hungary's envoy over commander's ban. So yesterday, remember, I was showing you the tweets of the foreign minister of Hungary, where they essentially announced that they bar entry to a Ukrainian military commander of Hungarian descent. So he actually is citizen of Hungary and Ukraine, and, they denied him entry into Hungary. And so in the statement, the Ministry of Ukraine suggested to the move contradicts Hungary's own frequent appeals about protecting the rights of Hungarian minority in Ukraine. The diplomatic protest adds fresh strain to already tense Kiev-Budapest relations. Now, as to some news that, again, Mark Rutte, was that the guy that called Trump daddy? Yes. That's why I wanted to mention it. I don't like this guy. I'm sorry. I mean, it's not about me liking or disliking. I don't like whatever he says. He's calling Trump daddy and all that, but whatever. Post everything. Mike, yeah, I will. Blue Sky. Yeah, I think that's a good source. Now, again, this is the news from this administration. Treat it accordingly. Question sources. So, Trump administration says that it has approved the sale of more than 3,000 extended range attack munition, ARAM, missiles to Ukraine in a deal valued $825 million. The ARAM missiles, with a strike range of 150 to 280 miles, could be delivered later this year if the sale is finalized. Who's going to finalize the sale? According to a notice from State Department, Ukraine will use a mix of European and U.S. funds to cover the purchase, including contributions from Denmark, Netherlands, Norway, alongside U.S. foreign military financing. While the administration has previously authorized equipment sales to sustain existing Ukrainian weapons systems, this marks the first major arms sale of new offensive capabilities announced under Trump's second term. I'll tell you one thing. Seeing is believing. With this administration, when we see Ukraine using this ARAM, we're going to break into celebratory dance and applause, like Rubio announces in these press releases. For now, the key word, if the sale is finalized. Why is it not when the sale is finalized? If is the key here. So let's see. Also, I doubt that they're going to use U.S. funds. What U.S. funds? Was U.S. giving funds? This is a question, right? Because they say, what do they say? They called it U.S. foreign military financing. What is that? I've been covering Ukraine now for years and this war and everything. Have you heard of U.S. foreign military financing? Was Ukraine getting part of it? Because I know PDA has nothing to do with schmoozing. Presidential Drawdown Authority. That's what Biden used to provide munition to Ukraine. We have also congressional approval and approved funds. But have foreign military financing? I don't know what that is. So seeing is believing. If they did it, good for them. Let's wait. Now, meanwhile, President Zelenskyy met with Dutch Green Labour leader Frans Timmermans to thank the Netherlands for its continued military and humanitarian support. Zelenskyy highlighted the importance of NATO-backed Pearl program, through which Netherlands has contributed $500 million for U.S. weapons, and called for further cooperation on air defense and domestic arms production. So, now, if this is $500 million, and what apparently Trump approved is $825 million, so it leaves us to figure out what the 325 comes from. Just my way of thinking. Meanwhile, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov reiterated this week that Moscow is still open to peace talks, but emphasized that Russia's so-called special military operation will continue. Bullshit, all of it. So, now, another part of a little bit of bullshit. German defense minister has addressed the fact that, well, Russian drones have been flying for the past 3.5 years over German airspace, now as much as on the daily basis. And so with reports of dozens at a time, Germany's defense minister acknowledged the incursions, bluntly stating, quote, "There is not much we can do about it," end quote. The admission underscores both the scale of Moscow's ongoing hybrid tactics and limitations of German and NATO air defenses against low-cost, persistent drone surveillance. So, and then again, recently there was a drone crashing in NATO territory. Romania was affected at some point. I mean, Poland, right? As recent as that was a couple of weeks ago. Then this MiG plane, the Russian warplane, was crashing. Are we going to address it? Is it right? Because you guys are so, like, you guys meaning NATO allies and NATO leaders, are so obsessed with Article 5, but you're so scared to come nowhere near it that it all becomes some type of utopia that you will somehow use it. Meanwhile, US, Japan, and South Korea met again on August 27-28. They convened in Tokyo for the fourth meeting for their trilateral diplomatic working group. And so that working group is aimed at countering cyber threats from North Korea. Now, North Korea is also flying drones into South Korea and Japan, whatnot. So officials from 19 agencies reviewed progress in disrupting DPRK's ability to fund its weapons programs through cybercrime, illicit IT workers, and global facilitators. The meeting focused on tightening restrictions on DPRK-linked actors, protecting private sector firms, and expanding cooperation on AI, autonomous sanctions, and law enforcement. So the leaders of the countries reaffirmed that their commitment to coordinated action and future engagement across strategic industries to blunt North Korea's cyber financing operations is ongoing. So let's see how this will, manifest. Certainly, we do have currently a leader in the United States who is very happy to meet Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un, who will be next week meeting China's Xi, Russia's Putin in Beijing, as they will watch a military parade. And unfortunately, as for now, at least, Trump will be watching it on television. Hence, I think no public appearances. I have to see when this happens. If that happens on Monday, I certainly be back to tell you all about it. Because Putin will be schooled like a schoolboy. Because he will come with cap in the hand, asking for money. Please give me money so I can murder more Ukrainians. I'm running out of money and meat. Can you give me meat and money so I can murder more children, during the night? And China is playing their cards really well, and they do have the cards. And yesterday I covered it in the newsletter, in the briefing. By the way, if you're not subscribed, what you're doing, it's free. Monday through Friday, get your news. Today's one will be sent right away when I'm done here. And Monday also we have a newsletter. So lastly, is it? Pre-last. I know it's long, but you're not going to see me on the weekend. It's okay. So Canada. Prime Minister Mark Carney has launched a major projects office. They call it MPO. Not to confuse with PMO, Prime Minister's Office. A new initiative headquarters in Calgary to accelerate the development of critical infrastructure projects across Canada. It's backed by Building Canada Act, passed in June. The MPO will streamline federal approvals and help coordinate financing for transformative projects like ports, railways, clean energy, and critical mineral developments. Led by Energy Executive Don Farrell, the MPO will operate on a one project, one review basis, capping approval timelines at 2 years. It will work closely with provinces, Indigenous partners, and private investors to unlock growth, cut red tape, and ensure Indigenous participation and ownership. Now, key funding includes $40 million for Indigenous engagement and an expansion of the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program to $10 billion. An Indigenous Advisory Council will guide MPO efforts, with membership announced next month. Quote, Canada must act decisively to transform our economy from reliance to resistance, said Carney, and added, the MPO will help us build faster, smarter, and more exclusively. So this is some great news for Canada. I'm happy that you're on the right side of this history, wherever we hit it. What are you guys are laughing about? Okay, you guys are having, Ruta said it was tongue-in-cheek remark. Maybe, maybe not. Well, how it went down with the daddy remark to Trump is he sat down and he said, you are intervening in this Russia-Ukraine thing. And it's like when two kids are fighting, parents are waiting until they essentially fight it out, until they step in and end it. And so you're like a daddy. That's what it was. Then in the presser, he was asked, why do you refer to Trump as daddy? And he said, oh, he's daddy. He's, so he reiterated it, and people ran with that reiteration during the presser. So for what it is. Now, a new report says that, now presented by Asia Society, Indonesia's energy transition hinges on strategic partnership with China, right? So wherever U.S. is leaving, China is getting in, right? It was last trip of Biden overseas, he went to Colombia. And I remember he was looking at, forests and essentially negotiating that U.S. will pay, I think, through the years, $4 billion, right? He said, oh, we have to improve also the Amazon River and the forest and like the lungs of the world. We have to, work on it and invest in it. Long story short, when Trump came in, he cut that financing. And guess who replaced it within a day? China. And of course, they built a huge port also in Colombia. And of course, they stepped into Panama Canal story because U.S. refused to invest, right? So here's the same story. The Asia Society Policy Institute Center for China Analysis has released a new report by researcher Kevin Zongje Lee, highlighting Indonesia's strategic approach to its energy transition in partnership with China. as Chinese companies play a dominant role in Indonesia's clean energy sectors, from nickel mining and EVs to solar and industrial parks. Lee argues that only a structured reciprocal partnership will align Chinese investments with Indonesia's climate and development goals. Lee proposes creating a China-Indonesia task force on energy transition and industrial cooperation to steer collaboration. But all of this is because they are already in discussion to collaborate closely. So, and this is something that, I had discussions about, because today I filmed this interview at the Rarick Museum, but I want to film content and interviews at Smithsonian and National Gallery, and, already filmed in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So this will be our new series for the Sunday edition. And by the way, please subscribe. Your next No Politics newsletter is coming 8 a.m. on Sunday, per usual. And their new series will be more about art, premiering next Sunday. So, but the point is, with museums, as much as I talk to people off the record in that business, they're saying we are currently thinking, what can we do with art and exhibitions? Because the Trump regime will take it from us, gift it to Russia, or sell it. And as much as we try to maybe arrange that our collection would travel to Europe for paid exhibitions, so museum can still make money while it survives the Trump regime, because everything is DEI, apparently and allegedly. Europe is not really willing to invest, but who is China. And so when I speak to these people who are curators of museums, they're like, so long story short, in a couple of years, all of our stuff will end up in China, because they're willing to pay, they're willing to provide space for exhibits, they're willing to hire people with knowledge. So that wherever we go, China steps in. And we, meaning the West, especially the United States, we made this beast. We grew this beast by stopping to produce on our soil and relocating it to China. So, but lastly, today in history, not a very cheery one, but on August 29, perhaps you do remember, Katrina happened. So August 29, 2005, Hurricane Katrina made landfall near New Orleans as a Category 3 storm, breaching levees and causing catastrophic flooding. More than 1,800 people died and millions were displaced, making it one of the deadliest and costliest natural disasters in U.S. history. Certainly a very somber, anniversary, so to speak, 20 years. And just to remember that those, who worked for FEMA, the 180 former and current workers, at this point, everybody's a former worker because those had been let go, wrote a letter, right? They called it Katrina Doctrine. And they said, you're so unprepared now that you are being at this point ready for another Katrina experience. And as a result, they were all let go. So, to finish on a cheery note, I found a cute video of a guy, it's a Chinese guy, has nothing to do with politics. He's traveling with the cat, and he is traveling this Friday. Come on. He's traveling to Turkey, and he's in the Turkish airport. And I was so fascinated how many facilities they have for cats and dogs and pets all together at the airport, because I have not seen it at LaGuardia or any U.S. airport, essentially. So maybe it's interesting to you. It's just 2 minutes of this guy and the cat, just to finish on some good note. Take a look.
Fly to Peking with a cat.
Peking, $185 for the cat.
Okay.
海棠的机票1400人民币。宠物安检通道。
这干嘛？Come on， 海棠。那工作人员看见海棠站在肩膀上，这家伙乐坏了。
伊斯坦布尔独有的宠物厕所。自助的猫粮、狗粮，狗是冲澡的地方。
这是垃圾袋， 是不是认厕所呀你？不上去走了哈。我去，给你拿瓶水。I want this one. Thank you very much.
How old is?
1 year.
1 year, bro.
Yeah, yes. 1 year.
Big. It's really very nice. I like this.
酸奶。这是。
How sweet is that? They have like dog food and cat food in airport. Come on. But if you have never been in Turkish and Istanbul airport, it's like a city. It's really cool. Okay, I see your comments. And Paul, don't be embarrassed. Was it Paul who was embarrassed that I saw your remark? I'm reading all of it. Whatever I show is just part of it. I really appreciate every single comment. You guys are so great, honestly. And thank you for commenting. And Doc, thank you for joining us and being active here. I really enjoy it. So whenever I play videos, I read it. So please don't, don't get discouraged. I saw the chumming up comment. Yes, here it is. So, Paul, no worries whatsoever. And I'm going to read through it, whatever you wrote here. How is he traveling with the cat? I thought you have to have all sorts of waiting periods and such. But this is like from China to Europe. That is my question too. Because like, have you ever traveled with the cat from at least Florida to New York? You're going to need like a whole hospital with you. So, but that's how it works apparently. So I'll study it. It's very interesting, So at this point, thank you so much for joining me. Happy Friday or whatever. Have a nice long weekend. I know some of you said I should take a day off. I will see if there is enough news to bother you with on Labor Day Monday. If anything, it will be a short, like 20 minutes or something broadcast just to get some international news, especially if this combo of Xi Jinping, Putin, and Kim Jong-un are meeting in Beijing. I think that would be very nice to document and talk about. So I will see what I can gather. Certainly, you will get your newsletter on Monday. So if you don't have time to watch, please enjoy the barbecues and wear the hell out of your white pants, because after that, you apparently are not allowed. You are allowed. So please have a safe weekend. Keep your head on a swivel. Stay safe. Stay sane. Thank you, Paul. Good night, folks. Yes, keep America alive another day. Exactly. One day at the time, and keep the hope alive, right? Thank you. And if you don't mind it, please like this and subscribe, whatever, so you can... Oh, I did, and I subscribed. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I put the comment and I didn't even read it. Thank you, Doc. So others can get this video recommended. They can maybe watch it through the weekend. And then Sunday, we have our Sunday edition. And I'll tie it somehow to Labor Day a little bit. All right? Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Your newsletter is arriving right now. And, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Have a safe weekend.